Hey, Paul Mueller here from 1851 Franchise. And today, for our Young Ones to Watch series, we have Kate Cusato from Minuteman Press in Frederick, Maryland. How you doing, Kate?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well also. Well, I think the most natural place to start would be for you to tell me a little bit about yourself and really tell me how you got into franchising.
Sure. So my dad and I have always been really close, and we both worked in very different industries in the print industry. My dad was in biotech, and I was working with at-risk youth. And we'd always talked about going into business together, and it was like, restaurant, do we do something totally original, do we franchise, do we, and then my dad's, a techie guy, and pretty handy with just about anything, which I am not. And so he started attending franchise expos, and there were several that he saw that he was curious about, and one day he ended up at, I believe it was in, in Dulles, although I'm not positive about that. But it was just a smaller franchise expo, and he came across Minuteman, and ended up talking to the reps that were there, and Minuteman. It just has a lot of things that we really like, and we're able to have our shop be what we want our shop to be, and so yeah, so I'm kind of jumping ahead, but my dad, JP, um, called and said, like, "Hey, I found this franchise. It's a print franchise. Do you, want to look into it?" And I was like, "Well, we don't know anything about print." And Minuteman's thing is, that you can get involved without knowing anything about print. And we did that. So with totally different backgrounds, we stumbled on this franchise opportunity, and it just happened to be a really good fit for us, and we've been happy ever since.
Was it always kind of in the cards for you to be working with your dad?
I like to think so. We that was our plan. It was like one day we'll figure it out. But I was actually living in Los Angeles, California, and he was in Maryland. And he and my mom actually is involved with a franchise now too. She had a job in hospital administration, and then when she retired, she was just kind of helping out. And now she's here all the time, and it's fun. It's like just a very chill, fun environment. But we've just always been close, and it's just always been easy. And certainly there are challenges with business, but at the end of the day, they're my parents, and we have each other's best interests at heart, and we figure it out together. So yeah, I would say it was always in the cards, or at least it was the dream that it was always in the cards, and it just kind of happened all of a sudden.
And when did you guys open your franchise location, or you guys purchased your franchise location? Is that accurate?
We did. So we bought an existing Minuteman. It originally opened in 1987. So it had been here for a long time. It was owned by the Loudon family, and the original owners. It was another, kind of parent child, or not child, but kind of combination. And the parents had, um, you know, for various reasons, not been able to work in the business anymore. And the son who was running it, just through, circumstance and whatever, was kind of looking to sell. But he had been here and been established, and had developed great relationships in Frederick. And so when we came around looking, when we met with the Minuteman headquarter guys at corporate, they came and they said, are you interested in selling? Because there was really kind of enough room in Frederick for two Minutemen at the time. And so the idea was like, will we open a new one? But the previous owner had struggled with some things just in growing, just with having, it's expensive to get new equipment, and do a bunch of kind of marketing and advertising, and so I think that he was just kind of ready to move on to something else, and it worked out to be perfect timing for us. So we came in and just took over a business that was well established, but maybe not well known, um, like quite enough, which is, which has changed just through marketing. I work really hard to do a lot of networking. So I'm kind of out and about in Frederick, just hanging out with all the great local business owners, going to events and kind of growing it that way. So yeah, so the previous owner did a great job, and we just had the opportunity to just take it and expand it and make it something different.
In addition to obviously that marketing component that you're talking about, and kind of jump starting that, what were some of the biggest challenges in taking over that business and really starting to grow it?
Oh, there were some challenges. So I mean, the biggest challenge was certainly just not knowing anything. I mean, really anything about print. So Minuteman, you go to corporate in New York, and they give you a 2-week training, and they do the best they can, but it's just a ton of information. So you come back, and fortunately, what Minuteman does is if you are a new owner taking over a previously existing Minuteman, they set it up that with the previous owner, they'll stay around for a couple weeks, and help out and, be kind of like part of the transition. So we came back and we tried to apply the things that we learned up at Minuteman HQ, and there was certainly a lot of great information. But when you're in like the thick of the day to day, and we came in and like the phone was ringing, there were orders coming in, so that was great, and also challenging because we didn't really have time to learn things necessarily the like organic way. We just got kind of thrown into it, which also works. But in addition to just not really knowing the business, we had a wonderful, amazing graphic designer who suddenly passed away. So we had this business, we found this amazing graphic designer. We were growing, growing, growing. And then as we were kind of all learning and starting to feel comfortable, we had this like horrible, not to be a downer, but this like really just horrible, tragic loss. And then we didn't have a designer, and trying to figure out how to keep things moving when you're mourning. And I will say, Minuteman headquarters was great. They sent out, we had our regional guy here. He was able to come in and like handle the stuff, even answering phones, kind of like having our back while we tried to just like get, a new designer and get, kind of reacclimated to things. So those were definite challenges. And then COVID happened. So it was 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, we took over, and we had like tripled business, and then COVID happened. And so, that was a whole other adventure.
Yeah, I'm interested. What was it like? What was it like as a franchise owner, knowing that when you guys were faced with something like a tragedy, amongst your small group, that the corporate office came and stepped in when they have however many locations across the country, but they were still focused enough on the individuals that they came to you guys when you really needed some help.
It was huge. It made all the difference because we were totally overwhelmed, and the previous owner had not used like the Adobe suite, the InDesign, of course now I'm blanking on the name, even though we use it all the time. That's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, so we had gone to like much more high tech Adobe um, systems to use. Sorry, and then but then once that happened, like we didn't know how to use that stuff. I mean, it takes talented designers to come in and use those systems. So those programs. So so that was super challenging having Minuteman headquarters. Not only, I mean, like they're just good guys. There's mostly guys up there, and they'll check in. They don't make you do things a certain way for the franchisor or bother you or force certain things, but they recommend the best way to do stuff, and they're there when you need them. And so, if we have even business questions, we can kind of call and see if they can kind of help us sort some things out. But when this particular thing happened, it was really heartwarming and, lovely to have like actual, VPs of the company, like calling to be like, oh my gosh, like, we're so sorry. Are you guys okay? And then to have the boots on the ground here while all the moving parts are happening, trying to hire somebody when you're trying to keep a million things moving and you're sad, but having, the Minuteman regional guy who came in, his name was Eric, and he's lovely, and he did interviews for us. He put out, a job description and put a blast out on a bunch of things and got people in, and we were able to find an amazing designer to come in, and he's still here now, and we have a second designer now too, and we're incredibly lucky with the team that we have. So it was a big deal to have the franchise there to help us, and we felt very supported.
And with all the challenges that you guys have faced, right? Like not just that, but also, COVID, which, everybody felt the impact of. What are some of the milestones that you've hit in your 5 years, or some of the successes that you guys celebrate?
Well, making it through, hopefully COVID is ending at some point. Making it through COVID, is a accomplishment in and of itself, just because it's been an interesting time. We had to pivot and do different things, and we did okay through COVID. But yeah, some milestones. I mean, Frederick is a really unique city. It's very cool. The business community here is thriving and connected, and there's but between the city itself and the county, and then the Department of Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce, there are just like a lot of entities that are like all kind of working together to help their local businesses be successful. So we have been recognized in different magazines here, and there were some awards from Minuteman and from Frederick as a city that we've gotten recognition for, and that kind of stuff is great because it gets you in front of people, it gets you in the paper or in print or on an interview from a franchise online magazine. So there's a lot of cool stuff that comes when you are just kind of out there trying to stay busy and do the right things and get in front of people. I mean, milestones, every time, we hit a new number or a new big, I mean, we've had some pretty record months. Since we took over, we've actually quintupled business at this point. And so, so that's huge. Every time, we hit a new monthly goal or surpass a monthly goal, first of all, Minuteman, sends over, they come with a plaque and you take a picture, which is always kind of cool. But it's just, you're proud of yourself. We won Minuteman. Actually, there's like around 1,000 Minutemen worldwide. And they, every year they do an expo, or every other year they do an expo. And we got recognized for marketing at the Minuteman Expo. We kind of got singled out for that, which was really cool. I don't know. Put me on the spot with this one. I'm trying to think of other milestones. But just mainly just for us, it's working with the community and being a part of the community and being recognized by this community that we love so much. So. Oh no, I can't hear you. Is that my speaker or you?
No, it's me.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Usually it's me, so I'm glad it was you.
It's always somebody. I'd love to talk about community a little bit in a couple of minutes. I do want to go back to something that you just touched on. You mentioned that during COVID that you guys had to pivot a lot in order to, continue to, thrive and grow your business. What were some of the things that you did during COVID that really helped you guys out? What were some of those pivots?
Oh, sure. So every Minuteman shop can kind of be run pretty much how the owner wants to run it. So, there are some Minutemen that are just kind of like smaller print and copy shops. They do, maybe smaller paper production stuff only. When we took over, a lot of before I say that, then there are Minutemen that do, promotional goods, wide format printing, apparel, stuff like that, awards, these things. And when we first took over here, the previous owner was only doing like standard print in-house. So that would be like booklets, business cards, brochures, like the kind of the standard stuff. We brought in wide format printing. We purchased some wide format machines, and then we got like this gigantic table so we could do like laminating and very cool stuff like that. And then we got into apparel and promotional goods, which were huge. And some of that stuff we can do in house, and some of that stuff we outsource. But so all that said, Minuteman owners can do a little bit of everything. You put a logo on it, and we can figure it out. So when COVID happened, obviously a lot of places were shutting down, or they themselves were pivoting, and they needed, we work, the Frederick Health System is our, local hospital and health system. And with COVID, they had to have testing sites and, eventually vaccination sites. And we work with the health department as well. So, so all those medical industries were needing signage and new like pamphlets and things that needed to be updated just constantly. So we were getting business from that. Local restaurants, there was a huge push here to support local restaurants. So they were, doing curbside, of course, like everywhere was. So they needed banners and A-frames and things like that. So all that stuff was kind of, standard Minuteman stuff that a lot of the franchise owners did, but that got much busier, during COVID. Things that happened that we had to pivot, when there were a couple of, like, the first months got a little dodgy, and it was like, oh, like, is everything going to shut down like really hardcore? And so I started looking for ways to just kind of like have anything to sell, even if the markup wasn't great. And so I could get my hands on things like isopropyl alcohol, which we were able to like stock, and we kept the prices low because we weren't trying to like gouge anybody, but it kept people coming by. It got local businesses, retirement homes, nursing homes, places that couldn't get their hands on this isopropyl alcohol. We had vendors that had an excess of it because it's used in some machines. So I was selling isopropyl alcohol. And then, obviously things like PPEs. So, any face shields, masks, any kind of like protective equipment that needed to be logoed, some that didn't even need to be logoed. People just needed masks. We had a lot of vendors for that. And then sneeze guards was something that kind of popped out of nowhere that we did, probably several hundred sneeze guards where, it's just the clear plexiglass with, the feet, little plexi feet, and they stick them on a desk, or they attach them to some cords, just to kind of protect the staff at various places. And some of them needed lettering or instructions or logoed, and they were all custom sized. So like next thing you know, I'm like dealing sneeze guards. Like it really was a very interesting time. But it was, when we were looking at a franchise, one of the reasons why we liked Minuteman is because we would be providing like services that people need. Like people need to advertise their business and market. And people during COVID needed things like, protective equipment and sneeze guards, as luck would have it. So we pivoted. We found, the kind of areas that people might need some unique items, and we were able to make that happen.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned earlier, being out in the community. Obviously, that you guys were really community focused during COVID, helping local restaurants, working with local hospitals and whatnot. But you also personally are really involved in the community in Frederick. Tell me about, some of the work that you do, and also, obviously, that's important to you from a business perspective and from a marketing perspective, and getting your name out there, and generating business. But why is that important to you personally to be out in the community and be so active?
Sure. Yeah, the networking is just kind of a natural thing that happens. But I, prior to getting involved with print, as I mentioned, I worked with at-risk youth. And so, I had a very like hands-on, like in a community, like helping people who are struggling with any, variety of issue you can imagine. And, it felt good to be, part of the solution, or at least trying to be part of the solution, or even just like, I previously worked in residential treatment. So in Los Angeles, I worked with a company where we had multiple shelters, youth shelters. So kids could come on like literally off the street, or be referred by CPS. And so it was an intense job, but it was super rewarding. And I did that kind of stuff for like a decade. So when I moved into print, it was a relief in a lot of ways, because it wasn't so intense. It wasn't just like constant crises that you were like dealing with. There's a crisis every once in a while in printing, but it's not, as serious. So it left me feeling like I wasn't necessarily like, you know, giving back, so in Frederick, there are tons of opportunities to give back. And one great one that I ended up finding and I joined was a friend of mine was like, you should join our Rotary. And I had no idea what Rotary was. But, essentially we, we have this group of people and, we either are raising money or we're, cleaning, a park every couple months, or we're working and helping build some houses, or we're packing backpacks for kids on Friday afternoons who don't have food at home to get them through the weekend. So it's this local great program called Blessings in a Backpack here. And so the Rotary volunteers with places like that. And it's kind of a great way to like volunteer with like a ton of different things, and so that's one way in which I got involved with the chamber. We have a really amazing chamber here in Frederick, and they're super helpful and super involved if you want them to be, and they offer a lot of great things. So after being a chamber member for a couple years and going to events and whatnot, I became a chamber ambassador, which meant I got to go kind of like reach out to people in the community, in the business community, who were looking for like, how do I grow my business, or how do I meet other people, and kind of telling them what the chamber can do, and like bringing them to some events and letting them meet a bunch of people in town. So being an ambassador was like a way that I could help out, it was very helpful for me to be a member of the chamber and work with ambassadors when I first got here, because I had really never done anything like, not only print, but just owning a business and going out and trying to meet people and build a community. So those are ways in which, just volunteering and giving back as much as possible here. It's the most I can think of. I mean, we do a lot of sponsorships. There are companies that come to us and they look for in-kind donations, for various things, raising money for, Boys and Girls Club, United Way. I mean, so there's just lots of ways in which we give back. In Frederick, there's an awesome organization called the Women's Giving Circle, and they raise a ton of money every year, and give it to local nonprofits, and the Rotary does that as well. So it's just, I don't know, it's just getting involved. I mean, I think every city and town, like they have opportunities like that for business owners, and Frederick makes it really easy to find those opportunities, which is great.
And to slide back over to your business, the opportunities that you have in Frederick, what are some of the goals that you guys are working towards right now? Do you have any plans for expansion? I know you mentioned that there was room for 2 Minuteman franchises in Frederick. Is that in the cards for you guys? What are you working towards?
So I think now, because we have kind of sucked up a lot of the business that was in Frederick that hadn't been at Minuteman before, there isn't room for 2 Minutemen now. That said, we absolutely are expanding. The previous owner was in a shopping center since 1987, and last year, was it last year? It was this year. It's been a crazy year. My parents and I actually bought a commercial building here in Frederick, and there are several units and renters, but we moved Minuteman into a location inside the building, so we've doubled in square footage, which is great. And then we've been able to get more equipment in here, which is nice, because then we can do, the more we can do in house, the more control we have over everything. So actually, we are getting embroidery machines delivered within the next couple of days, which is super exciting. We already can do, like presses and like screen print type stuff. But we are bringing embroidery in house, which is super exciting. So, just having the space, this, larger space, we've been able to grow and bring things in and look into other things like, envelope printers, label makers, because our wide format machine, we do labels all day, but there are quicker ways to do labels. And so it's exciting to think of like all the things that we could fit in here, although it's actually getting kind of tight. But yeah, so the plan is to grow. We've talked about maybe not in Frederick, but like maybe in like another like nearby town, opening another location, or there are some local printers that are like a little bit older that might have some machines, and like older machines that we don't have, or that we might not necessarily buy, but maybe by acquiring that business, we would get those machines in their book, of course. And so we look to we look at, sorry, my Outlook is beeping, which is just unprofessional. But yeah, so we're always looking to expand, and that, if that's buying out, a business that's ready to sell, then, we'll consider that. If it's just expanding, in-house, that's also, something that's happening as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a lot of things in the works and a lot of different ways that you're going to be able to grow over the next few years.
We got dreams. Hopefully we can make them all happen, but so it's, and then once, I know that most people are feeling like, hopefully we're getting to some sort of end with COVID, and things can, continue to open up, but it's going to be a little bit of time for that. So, we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think honestly, the last thing is just knowing that like the vast array of experience that you've gotten in just 5 years since becoming a franchisee. I'd love to know, what is some advice that you would give to a young up and coming franchisee who's either looking to start their own franchise or take over an existing one like you guys did?
Absolutely. I mean, my two best points of advice would be: go out, network, join chambers, join rotaries, join anything that you can. Be a part of the community. Be as generous with your time as you can, and get to know people, because there are a lot of great people. I mean, you meet people, and then, groups kind of like develop and, spur off into something else. And there's actually a new Rotary that was just developed in Frederick, with a bunch of like-minded individuals who want to do things differently than other people have been doing them, and improve, the existing, model that they were involved with. And, and it's because all these people came together and networked and got to know each other, they created their own, beautiful thing. And that's kind of what the networking, like the beauty of networking can be, is like, you really can meet some amazing people and make amazing connection and lifelong friends. So in addition to just networking and going to things, and meeting people, I highly recommend contacting other franchise owners. So, in the Minuteman community, you can talk to Minuteman HQ about a lot of stuff, but sometimes it's like, an in the shop question, and like, you're like, oh, I wonder how people are handling this. And in my experience, every Minuteman owner that I've ever reached out to has been willing to talk to me and give me advice. And why recreate the wheel, right? Like, they, if they already have a working model, and I'm like, oh, I want to, put this in place, well, there's that might already have been done. So you kind of talk to, if you have a good franchise headquarters, that really helps. But if you don't, just reach out to other franchise owners that are in your community, that are in your area of expertise, and learn from them, because there's just so much that you don't realize you don't know, and an experience can really help you out when you're new. So go ask questions.
Yeah, two really great pieces of advice, I think. Well, thanks, Kate, for taking the time to do this. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad we got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything about you and your business that we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, just it's exciting. It's an exciting thing to be a franchise owner. It can be scary, but really it's kind of nice, because you've got kind of a built-in support system. So, I don't really think there's much else that I would share that I haven't already rambled about. So.
Right. Well, like I said, thanks again for taking the time, and best of luck to you and your dad and your family as you guys continue to grow your business.
Awesome. And same to you. Good luck with everything.
All right. Thanks, Kate.
Take care. Bye.